As I've maintained throughout this channel's existence, humanity is the master of design when it comes to seeing things that we may actually see later. What does that word salad mean? Well, look back to our depictions of aliens and their communicators. It seems an awful lot like a cell phone now, doesn't it? Or how about the concept surrounding literally riding on the outside of a black hole to break the speed of light barrier by compressing space in front of a ship? An interesting concept that now actually appears to have some merit and is actively being looked into given our ability to create microscopic black holes with the Hadron Collider. The reality is, imagination is simply intellect at play, which I believe that's what Einstein stated, but what if depictions of things actually match what has alleged to have been seen in the past and written about? In the darkest hour, humanity would be besieged by a creature that appears to just really be a ball of light. However, what is intrinsic involved abilities is really probably just technology. As they hunt down humans by focusing on the human nervous system, it would become clear that we are dealing with something that humanity has identified prior. So in today's episode, let's discuss this invasive alien force, why targeting Earth is literally the most dumb thing imaginable, and how they may have actually evolved in the first place. We kick off today's story with the title card, jumping right into it, only to be faked out by a massive intro. It appears to be some sort of map of the stars, and where is the center of that map, you may be asking? That's right, you guessed it, Moscow, or Moskva. I'm not really sure which one it is. Wait, you didn't guess that? Big oof. Imagine saying that in 2026, almost 2026. As a plane begins its descent into Moscow, which I know, people are gonna cringe. It's Moscow, or Moskva. It's sort of like every nation has a different way of saying things, yet we call it something else. It is what it is. So they're flying above a storm, it appears. Allegedly, you're not supposed to do that. Meanwhile, as they do, my god, the absolute mad lad is playing the on-the-rails phone version of Dead Space, also known as Dead Space Sabotage. You can't get this anymore, unfortunately. Tragic. Like, I wanted to hate this movie, but considering the producer is cultured, or at least this cultured, I can no longer in good conscience make fun of it. This will become just a massive glaze fest from here on out. Thanks for watching. So, as handsome protagonist 1, who in no way gets taken out by aliens later, look, I made it as far as I could with the glaze fest, anyways, is asked to turn off his phone. The reality is, you can just put that bad boy in airplane mode. That's why it was created after all. He then argues about how it will not mess up the navigation system as the lights then go off. That's not ideal. As they do, the Russians report they've experienced an electrical short. I would need new pants. Good lord, I hate flying. Something about being in a tube that high up, packed in like cattle, it's not fun. Also, a flight attendant wouldn't sit there smiling about this nonsense. Your phone is getting thrown out the window. She's like, oh, wow, you're so right about airplane mode. Anyways. After the landing, all the other flights have been canceled, spelled with 2 L's, because we actually handed England that L back in 1776, and then also in 1783, canceled is spelled with 1 L, USA. As the dynamic duo begin driving through Moscow, they're there to expand their software company, it appears, wearing jeans and a suit top. Listen, software engineers are quirky people. I got a friend in software. It really do be that way. Entering the building but having not received the email apparently, backward slicked hair over here says he won't be needing them any longer as he stole the actual brains of the operation's site. Being escorted out by Vladimir and Vladimir, 2 American women are walking through Moscow, taking pictures of the area as one does. But luckily, a vampire moon looms in the distance. Heading to the nightclub, the bros are bummed out as they discuss how they are totally boned. They will get a lawyer apparently who knows Russian law. Ah yes, Russian law. Good luck with that, brother. Bit laissez-faire, as they say. So as they look at one of the women, backwards slicked hair, then talks about how he's an alpha wolf. This is literally what he says. He says he's a lone wolf. As handsome protagonist says, his mom left his shirt in his room. That's where he got it from. It's good, bro. Default to your mom jokes. Anyways, spotting the American women from earlier, she then speaks Spanish to some Russian dudes for some reason, and getting some American-on-American action, the two brag about being billionaires in their own minds. Meanwhile, the brunette's mom is upset that her daughter left for Moscow randomly and texted her that. I mean, why exactly would you just up and leave for Russia of all places? I have no idea. Getting asked what exactly they do for a living, they all take a picture as the lights then go out once again. As everyone then heads outside, an aurora borealis at this time of year in this part of the country appears overhead. And of course it's yellow. That cannot be good. As the yellow orbs begin descending, they break apart and seem to be seeking things out. Coming down in the middle of the group, it dissipates as the officer then approaches it, which is incredibly dumb. Like, brother, don't you know about Russian experiments in the first place? The government's always doing something. It's like common for accidents to happen apparently, or at least it was. I don't know. I knew like one Russian guy like 3,000 years ago who joked about it, and now I know like one Russian woman who never talks about the homeland. Actually, two, I guess. So my information is incredibly limited on what they're even doing. So Officer Curious then touches it and immediately gets ashified as the creatures start identifying the human nervous system and vaporizing anything that gets close. Bit of a bummer there, as I guess, first contact's not going so well. But you know what? Cloaking would be easier, given it appears all you need to really do is prevent the nervous system activity from being identified. So as everyone runs, Handsome Protag 1 and Random Cannon Fodder Man get the door shut, which immediately gets blown open. As it enters the water, one guy appears to be invaded, which will never be discussed again, as man's answer to the alien menace gets thrown, which is fire, which disrupts the alien's ability to see. It appears to only identify energy. So this becomes a massive clusterfuck, as everyone keeps trying to escape, as Slickback then shows he continues to be a giant turd in the punch bowl. Running to the back room, everyone is now trapped back there, as everyone else is getting absolutely shreked up front. Oh, thank God, Slickback survived after sacrificing that one woman. Hooray! Eventually everyone gets ashed as they wrap the body of the person who ran in there with them. I have no idea why, as then they hang out for a few days. Like, it's been 4 days, and they've gone through a crazy amount of food. Again, also, what was the deal? Why did my voice crack? What happened to that one guy who just died? Bit confused there. So they now have a plan. All Americans load up. They're headed to an embassy. Slick back hair? I don't know. Suck start a force multiplier. Deuces! Throwing the peace symbol, they then emerge and see nobody is really left. Just a ton of ash everywhere. Slickback had found some alcohol, as then they pull out a map that is usually in the carpet in a youngling's room. You know the one. We all know that town. Anyways, heading outside. It's Ash City, baby. History will remember me saying city, not having a list in that moment. Anyways, the Russians attempted to get rid of these things, decidedly unsuccessful, beginning their nice jaunt. I mean, these things gotta be around, as clearly there would be other humans that they're still hunting. An old lady is bricking up her window, which that sounds messed up, as she tells them, beware the lights. Yeah, no kidding. Slickback Hair has no idea where they are, which this is his town. Anyways, apparently the military was sent out at one point, which broke the bridge that they are currently on, but they didn't see it until the camera saw it. Heading back down, they keep running around a city that they have no idea how to navigate. Man, wide open areas, that's gotta be tiring. Finding a police car, a quadruped then runs by. Interesting, as then they find some maps and flares as the quadruped starts barking at something unseen, but gets ashed. It now begins moving towards the car as it spots Handsome Protagonist 1 looking around the corner. Nice going, Broseph. Moving towards the car, and then starts up the lights and sirens as it moves over it. Hiding underneath, it sees nothing as then it moves on. Considering these things are supposed to be really smart, you think it would think to just check under the car. And also, you can just cover yourself in metal, because apparently that will block everything. Knight Heavy Armor is so back, baby. Emerging once more, they then head over to where everyone is hiding. Looks like a giant mall. Slickback is upset as it took out the dog. Okay, so a little bit of humanity. And then emerging on the other side of the mall and realizing there is more, every man's nightmare, they find a plane had gone down, which could have easily just have been them. Slickback then freaks out about how they want to go home, as he says there is no home to go back to, just hang out in Russia. Electricity appears to get in the way of the human electrical systems, though, which, metal. You could also literally just build a Faraday cage around yourself, and this thing would have no idea where you are and no ability to attack you. Again, easiest dub ever. That night, they then decide to hold up, as Slickback says they want to be brave in their own minds, but they don't know who they really are until something happens. It's true, though. Flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. The beauty, there's also another F1 apparently, but I don't know. Anyways, the beauty is of all this is you can actually train yourself to react if you do freeze. Courage is being afraid, but doing it anyways. Again, everyone hopes that when things go down, you'll be the person who will definitely react with all due measure and be the hero, but I can tell you, when I was younger, I would freeze up like you would not believe. Now that I'm older, I tend to react more. I guess because I'm less afraid of death because my body hurts, but the desire to freeze is definitely still there. It's interesting how the human brain works. And also, freezing is not cowardice. It's your brain trying to figure out if the situation is going down as you perceive it before reacting, but sometimes you sort of get stuck in a feedback loop. So don't be too hard on yourself if you've ever frozen up prior. Now, if you run when others are on the line, you need to work on that. But if it's just yourself, hey, raise hell, praise Dell, beat feet, brother. Anyhow, Handsome Protag then looks across the mall and spots Brunette getting changed in front of a window as she freaks out and runs, probably because you were staring at her, big dog. Luckily, Handsome Protag 1 is wearing a light bulb to identify when the things are close, as Brunette then falls back and gets pulled through the coats by him. Continuing to hide, the ball of energy moves through as it loses them, but apparently they can't see you through the glass. So the armor just got significantly lighter. It can only sense your bioelectric signature through the air. Okay, again, easiest dub ever. Arriving at the embassy, well, crap, the Americans didn't fare too much better, but there are considerably more bullet holes in the wall. USA, baby. Grabbing a force multiplier, Slickback then grabs it and immediately forsakes his Russian brutes, having no idea how to actually aim this thing. I figured it was like day one training for Russians. Deciding they should stick together, we have a real reverse Sam situation going on here from the Metro series, which I might need to explain that one. Basically, Sam, in the Metro series, was an American soldier who got trapped in Russia when the nukes fell. Bit of a pariah situation, but was inducted to the Russian squad anyhow because there are bigger fish to fry like Nasalis and creatures that could phase through reality and scramble your brains. Anyways, walking around the embassy with a flare, definitely call out because you never know who's just vibing in there around the corner. And checking the map, Burnett then confirms everywhere on the planet has been hit. Hardware, underground, seems to have survived, but they hope to reconnect with Budapest for some reason. And finding a birdcage, they poke the radio and listen to it as a man is talking and repeating a message. Blondie then yells about it being on, as these things can see electricity. Yes, they can see electricity. And they can see you, but it's never been confirmed that they can see radio signals. So looking out, because if they can see radio signals, they can't see anything because we are bathing this rock in radio signals all the time. Anyways, looking out over Moscow, they are evidently surrounded dead center to whatever these creatures have just been SDIYBTing concerning the ground. The meme is old, but it's only old by a few months, so it still checks out. They hear force multiplier shots being fired as Slickback decides to leave the group. They need to go get him as he can translate Russian, and he's the only one that really can. Don't you hate when that happens? Could have happened to a friendlier guy. As Burnett then spots the creatures coming through, she yells out as Slickback claims to have seen something, which is why he's out there. What could he have claimed to have seen that was this important to leave? Nobody knows. Anyways, so he gets sectioned off like an absolute clown as the creatures see him, which... Okay, he becomes somewhat of a cool guy, and he fires at the creatures to sacrifice himself, and then gets immediately ashed. Well, great news, you get your business idea back now, but the bad news? Turns out there was complexity in him, and he wasn't just all bad, as with most humanity. So down to 4, they then spot a room with a light on with people walking around. Hence, Protag 1 argues with secondary Protag about going over there as they argue about the sun coming up in just an hour. Yes, because nighttime really seemed to make it that much more safe, didn't it? I mean, I guess the lights would make it more obvious at night, but I mean, it was near you could just, pay attention to your surroundings, right? Or use something that produces sound. Or hell, create a glass cube around you that using epoxy or something and just walk there. I don't know, it seems like really anything that blocks light, or at least electricity, could block your chemoelectric signatures. You could probably cover yourself in plastic, if I'm being serious. So getting to the building, Russian offspring comes out as they ask her if her parents are there. Yes, here, there, caught up in the wind, all around really. You probably actually just breathed some of them in. Knocking on a door, the man has surrounded his home in copper pipes, creating, you guessed it, a Faraday cage. Also, what are the odds of finding a youngling who knows both Russian and English out here who happen to survive? So Tesla over here has covered Dr. Mambo in Christmas lights, preventing him from, being, I guess, ashed, which, you know what? I appreciate this man's priorities. He explains everything is totally screwed all over the planet. On the radio, a broadcast is being sent out. It's the Russian Navy in Moscow, who have taken refuge in the river. They leave in the morning, apparently, and it appears as though the submarines are all leaving rivers soon for deeper waters to escape these things. That night, the womenfolk have been recruited to accompany Russian offspring to get resources, telling American Blondie to close the cage and make sure it's locked and then head out as the creatures look out over the city. Heading downstairs, they head out as Sergei then shows that he has created a focused microwave beam to destroy the creatures. This is like every video game ever where it's like, oh, you're coming across this new creature? Well, I just so happen to have built something that could take out this creature that we have never dealt with ever. Okay. He says maybe they can even create a chain reaction, and if they do, they can connect charges, and he bases that information on absolutely nothing. They then look at Dr. Mambo and discuss the countermeasures as the creature then spots the womenfolk in the apartment window. Why would you not be ducking? I have no idea. Hold up. I just realized something. Why could it see it through the window? They couldn't see them earlier through the glass. Why can they now see through the glass? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, plot hole. Anyway, so American Blondie then runs off, not trusting the Russian offspring, as she's like, no, you should come with me. I know where to hide. They think they know better, even though they've never been to this apartment complex before. So anyways, they decide to ascend and then head to the cage. Running in, Burnett gets the door closed, as everyone then hides because she can't get the door locked. Nice. So because they couldn't do that, she didn't even really attempt it, if I'm being honest with you. Sergei actually fires at the creature with Dr. Mambo running away. Good move. Sergei goes to fire again, but the batteries are already drained, and then he gets totally got in the process. You just lost the one guy who could actually build countermeasures because you couldn't lock a door. Way to go. Going to light up the gas, American Blondie then gets ashified by the creature as they all begin climbing down the ladder. Newly promoted Primary Blondie now asks where Ash Cloud went as they run out. Coming across a few Russians in armoring, they light up the creature that was following them, but it does very little, it seems. Then firing an RPG at it, it goes off as it's not really able to affect their armoring with its lightning, which is rather interesting. Realizing once they discharge the lightning, their shielding breaks. This means their armor has cracks, and if they can, actually injure these things, that means they can kill it. Going back to a refugee camp, they are asked where they are from. Seattle, actually. It's a nice place for the most part, except for that one time I watched some random dude lay hate in the middle of the road. I didn't even want to watch it. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's like a train wreck, and it happened too fast to look away. Like, if I could make cave paintings, this would be one of the traumatic events in my life that I would make a cave painting about. Ugh. Anyway, so telling the Russians where they are headed, the Russians say, well, the areas you want to go are completely overrun because there are any areas ever. But if you want to go around it, it'll take like 5 weeks, and that's if you're lucky and holds out. The Russians want to stay because it's their home. Handsome Protag wants to go home too, along with everyone else, and, fight for their home. Brother, at this point, home is with humans, no matter the nationality, because you are likely going back to absolutely nothing. Russian team lead then says they can use the metro, though. It is their best shot. Okay, heading down, Artyom and the rest of his team that have names, but I forgot them, move through as then he throws some light bulbs to see if the creatures are nearby. As they light up, the creature is nearby as it sends out lightning going after promoted Blondie as she's not vibing with this event. Handsome Protag 2 then gets grabbed by the creature as he's immediately ashified. I'll tell you what, everyone in this movie just goes out completely unceremoniously as all get out. Like, you really cannot call when someone's about to get got. And then there were two. Approaching the river, they find a boat as Artyom says there must be a submarine down there. Starting at the boat, they begin sailing downstream as promoted Blondie is having a panic attack as Burnett then soothes her. Solo Handsome Protag is then bummed out in the corner over witnessing his friend, get turned to ash. Valid. As he explains, Handsome Protag 2's mom made him play with him as a kid because apparently he was a total weirdo. And now he never got to say goodbye. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Crashing into a concrete barrier because Artyom isn't good at driving. Humanity was just in the way, apparently, as Earth is mineral rich. Oh, hold up, brother. We have like an entire asteroid belt that would have been way easier to utilize than mine. Like, that's all I'm saying. So as these creatures mine, everyone gets thrown into the water. And can you imagine bypassing all of the other planets in our solar system, or hell, all of Jupiter and Saturn's moons to go after the one planet that has life and be like, oh, this planet where we've been stripping it of resources anyways? Yeah, that's what we want. These things just completely suck at mineral finding, I suppose. And at this point, they are picked up on the submarine as Solo Protag and Artyom argue with the second in command over here about getting the brunette back because somehow she got completely separated. Why? Anyway, somehow the nuclear sub has power packs for the microwave cannon. This is quite literally going to turn into the plating was about to fail. There's viscosity through the gel layer optics, totally fried. And let's not even talk about the power supply. You know how expensive this gear is, son? This situation is completely going down right now with the microwave cannon. Well, I guess tell that to the shield noobs here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referencing Halo 2. Anyways, leaving the submarine, they go to find Burnett in order to not let her die. Assumedly, what's a horrible fate, but I guess it happens pretty quickly. So charging up the microwave, there is no cover, as then they throw light bulbs and cell phones to see if anything is around. Moving through, Solo Protag then finds Burnett's bag, but no Ash, so I guess that's a good sign. Messing with the microwave cannon, the creature then approaches as Solo Protag then falls as everyone opens up on it, which he fires at it, breaking through its shielding. My god, they're squids. They're able to kill it, as then they hear their phones going off, indicating a lot are coming their way. Using water, they assume it will cause a chain reaction as Solo Protag then heads out to go find Burnett. Very confusing situation going on here. The creatures then stop before the water as Solo Protag then tries to find Burnett in the buses. Promoted Blondie then throws some Molotovs as it messes with their shielding as they're able to start doming these creatures. These things literally look like man's interpretations of angels, is all I'm saying. So Solo Protag and Blondie then hug it out. Burnett almost gets ashed as the bus starts driving. Freeing her, the battery for the microwave is dead as Solo Protag then throws a shard at it, which blows up the creature. Why? Well, to be honest with you, I have no clue. Heading back to Team Artyom, everyone has survived, which was a little surprising because I thought everybody was going to die. Getting back to the submarine, Artyom then tells them to leave on the submarine as today's the first day of the actual war since they learned how to fight these things. Descending into the submarine, somehow Burnett's mom has survived and they have enough signal in a post-apocalyptic society to get a text about how she survived. So Solar Protag and Burnett go to kiss, grossing out promoted Blondie as the submarine descends with some crazy amount of mining still going on. Like, this is not a good situation. Later, the submarine is in the open ocean, I guess, as other cities have dealt with the issue, allowing at least somewhat for a foothold, and thus concludes the darkest hour, or aliens bogarting our resources. We find their planet, we bogart their stuff next. I'll tell you what, boys, it ain't looking so good. What I always find fascinating about our planet is technically as absolutely goated as Earth is, I mean, technically speaking, we are only sort of in the habitable range for our solar system, and it's only going to get worse over time, unfortunately. Our world is absolutely blasted by radiation from our sun quite regularly, as even though she's a middle-aged star, solar flares, storms, whatever, get thrown out towards us with a surprising amount of just like, you could just expect it. It's going to happen. In the past, this has been consistently for the planets in the inner belt of our solar system kind of a problem. Planets like Mercury, for instance, no shot it has an atmosphere at all. Venus, living off pure spite and hate to keep its own atmosphere, given its magnetosphere is only considered to be induced magnetic fields. Essentially, the solar wind creates an induced version of this field when it reacts with Venus's ionosphere high above the planet. But even then, it's not perfect. A lot of radiation gets through. Meanwhile, Mars was actually dealt a pretty crap hand when it used to have a magnetic field, but over time, that began to fail. It is hypothesized that really both Venus and Mars were potentially habitable at one point in time, but after the magnetic field began to fail, at least for Mars, the atmosphere would slowly be stripped away to the point where it is now, and apparently Venus just got straight up godsmacked by some sort of planet-sized thing, and that's why it rotates as slow as it does. Anyways, Earth alone survived for several different reasons. A strong magnetic field that protects the entire planet being the major one, allowing for the actual stabilization of the atmosphere and the potential for life to form and then move on to land. Also, along with that, the formation of our moon stabilizing the planet's spin and slowing Earth down a little bit did help us out as well, and even stabilizes our orbit around the sun. But even with all these benefits, it will not last forever. Earth currently is heading towards the warmer side of the Goldilocks area of the solar system, and Mars is actually having the cooler side of the Goldilocks area kind of approach it. As the sun increases in luminosity, not only will it get brighter and hotter, but it will begin to expand outwards as well, adding to these issues. Over time, this will consume Mercury and Venus, and the jury is sort of still out on if it's actually going to totally consume Earth or not. But ironically, as I think it's really fascinating, this gives Titan the ability to become more like Earth in the future, as it will receive more solar radiation and warmth, and it's considered to be kind of a primordial Earth at this point. This is the fate of not just this solar system, but any solar system that has a habitable world orbiting a star right now for a long enough period for life to arise. For a time, the planet is quite habitable and will be able to support life if the right parameters are met. However, as with everything, it cannot last forever, and eventually the planet will become too hot to support life as the surface is then sterilized by the star that has been supporting it all this time. Now, you're probably sitting there wondering, okay then Roanoke, what is the point of this discussion of our own solar system? Well, it does two things. Three if you think about it. First, it lets us know that you're a huge dork for assuming it to be rambling, but at the same time, also not completely incorrect to just assume that, I suppose. I'm still a dork though. Second, it gives us clues as to where this species arose from at some point in their own past, but it also shows us why they're absolute clowns when it comes to mining Earth. I guess that could be the third reason. Or maybe I just made the third reason up, I don't know. So, to me, I mean, there's really no point in what they are doing, but hey, I guess I'm not some dumb alien squid life form from another rock that decided to do this, which speaking of, I think we should break it down as such. First, let's discuss the actual potential evolutionary history of these creatures, because there are some extremely strange events taking place that would biologically lead these things to be what they are in the first place, and then we need to talk about the actual ashification of humans interacting with them before finally just absolutely dunking on these idiots for being exactly what they are, which are idiots. So let's start from the beginning. An evolutionary biology discussion concerning this race, but an important one as it helps to explain that this species isn't just completely technology driven, but also a byproduct of a hostile environment that likely honed them into what they are. And for that, we need to go back to Earth's own history because this is a pro-human channel and Earth is number one. Ever ask yourself why life, seemingly according to the theory of evolution, would have originated in water first and foremost? Well, the concept of organic molecules forming and reforming over an astronomically long time period then forming more and more complex molecules to create the first cells, or really DNA at first, would have water as the perfect medium for such interactions to take place. And that's a pretty fair assumption, but along with that, the other reasoning is literal protection against the fireball in the sky. It's important to remember that Earth's own magnetic field flips every once in a while. In fact, allegedly, we are overdue for one right now, and supposedly it should be weakening, but when that happens, the poles will actually literally become north and south, and they'll switch, at least concerning magnetization. The physical poles do not flip because that would be catastrophic, but the magnetic field will, which will screw with everything that we have. Like, everything's going to be messed up. All of our satellites probably going to be useless until we're able to update them. Now, the problem with this process is, if it happens at the wrong time, you are totally boned. In the past, this may have happened because leading up to the flip in a magnetic field surrounding Earth as it significantly weakens, it's a bit of an issue, right? As this process continues, if a solar storm were to hit at that exact point, you are screwed because the magnetic field will not be strong enough to prevent quite a bit of ionizing radiation through. This may have actually happened in the past, which led to some abysmal outcomes, and we're pretty sure this is what happened to Mars. Essentially what happened, not with Mars, but here, was the surface would have been blasted with radiation, and the life that really wasn't used to it, which in turn, could lead to cancers, complete destruction of genetic profiles, and in general just tumors and mutations to form, if not outright killing the creature. Any creature also located in shallow waters actually would have been protected for the most part, unless they were like right at the surface. As charged particles move through the water, they actually lose a significant amount of energy, as the water molecules will essentially absorb this and bleed it dry. Actually, in things like cosmic rays, for instance, which was the alleged event that led to the Ordovician extinction event, it was basically a gamma ray burst. Essentially, as the name implies, there was gamma rays and also charged particles. Well, they're functionally stopped within just about an inch of water, but outside of that, you're totally screwed if you are on the surface. So I suppose if you were in water and the sky ever starts looking a little aurora borealis-y, better to dive under and hang out there for as long as you can. Hold your breath, player, because Earth is about to get absolutely blasted. Now, when it comes to gamma rays, which, as said, gamma ray burst, water is still pretty effective at preventing issues. Roughly 3 feet down, and all gamma rays will be cut down by about 50 to 70%. Heading down deeper, say 20 to 30 feet, the water actually offers incredible protection against radiation. However, for cosmic ray bursts, like the one that may have caused this extinction event, I believe it was something like 95% of all species died out. You would need to head down, and I hate to say this, to a level where the anglerfish hang. I know, the anglerfish is down there, but the beauty of this is that man could engage in our full-scale war eradicating these blights because it's our space now, and that's what we need to do anyway. So, preemptively, I say we just start nuking the Mariana Trench and anything that lives down there because they're all hideous. Anyways, so wretched creatures cast aside as they should be, the point is water makes an excellent shield for any outside events that could cause quite a bit of issues, but the main one I want to focus in on is the radiation shielding and specifically how the species may have come about. When we look at things, to me, they really do look like ophanims, or the wheel angels that were covered in eyes with the big eye in the center. Like quite literally something beyond human comprehension is always interesting to me. It'd be like someone saw something, so then they would draw that, but their brain was struggling to grasp what they were even looking at. So if you want to know actually how communication fails, our eyes and our brains, try to describe the color green to someone who can only see in black and white. That's the key here. Or somebody who's blind, who's never even seen color before. They have no concept of what blue and yellow is. So saying those two things combined means nothing. I swear, I've used this example before. It's we'll just tell them what blue and yellow is. It's you're just saying how to make green. You're not describing green. Dork. Anyways, they cannot see the color green, so if you can't point to a tree either and say, look. Basically, how do you describe the color green then? That's how language fails quite regularly. Anyhow, but assuming this is not to be some sort of angelic species that is beyond mankind's comprehension, mainly because I can comprehend it, let's discuss where it comes from based on these context clues. As we look at what we can see first, voice cracking aside, these guys look really dumb. Look, I didn't design their species, their hostile homeworld did. Don't hate me for it. Don't hate the player. Hate the YouTuber who makes this stuff up, because this is all fan fiction right now. I'm the one making this up. Anyways, I'm just a blossoming xenobiologist, but I'll be damned if it isn't all just dead space. As we look, we can see first and foremost that the face has a prominent protrusion where the nose of most species would actually sit. It's called the maxilla. That's where your mouth and nose are. As we move up, we see the eyes are forward-facing and sitting in a location that would indicate that they are predatory in nature. Forward-facing eyes do not always mean predator. Look at gorillas, but in this sense, it would, given that they are actively seeking out humans to destroy. The eyes appear to have pupils in them, which is actually how they would be able to see the nervous system of humans. The iris of this species appears to glow the same yellow as the rest of the body does, just beyond their shielding. The mouth appears to be absent. However, what we can see surrounding their body in a moment, which is, actually just behind their head, I guess, is a larger flaring of the vertebral column. This part is the most interesting to me. As we look at their physiology, this vertebral column flanking the sides of their head may indicate that their bodies have a more flattened serpent-shaped body. By this flanking here, this would help them glide through their environment more easily and actually steer correctly. As the column continues, the other things that we can see are the vertebral column does not actually continue to be flared out in this configuration. Instead, it tapers and becomes much more like a serpent body. To me, this is just a serpent species that has its body curl around it, but the more meaty portions of its body have been lost. So then what gives? Well, I think this concept is most easily explained by the idea that our bodies are simply just life support. Look, I like my body. This thing is mostly great, but the issue with skin, muscle, fat, and meat in general is that it will degrade over time. From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. Truly, we should all crave the certainty of steel. This species appears to be more technologically far along, to the point that they have solved a major issue, but still wanted to keep some of the more beneficial naturally occurring countermeasures that they needed, which actually relates to their skeletal system. Or if you're British for some reason, you call it skeletal. I have no idea why. So as we see, there is no meat except for probably the eyes and the brain, possibly some skin on the face itself. We can surmise that their technology has reached a point where they were able to create this shielding through technological advancements, but also it serves a purpose of life support. And this shielding may have not just been born out of a desire to go to other worlds, but to deal with a homegrown struggle. As we take into consideration how they even got like this in the first place, I believe their attack methods actually shed some light on why they're doing the things that they do. When interacting with Homo sapiens, or really any other animal for that matter, we have heard that they have actually, they have to go through a sequence of events taking place that leaves them somewhat vulnerable. Allegedly, they have to shoot through their own shielding, which leaves them exposed. So we have to ask, what is the shielding and what are they shooting? I believe it's what is naturally evolving and what is subsequently created. With this species, given their energetic nature and ability to ashify someone, it seems like to me their homeworld was actually bathed in radiation. Their sun, for whatever reason, or even just their planet that they were on, either had like a weaker magnetic field or the sun's radiation output increased, or was just high and they were in like a really high radiation band area. I mean, look at, Look at, I believe it's Saturn. Its magnetic field, or it could be Jupiter, actually just funnels radiation into its moons all the time. So it could have been a moon planet orbiting another planet. Anyways, which we know Subnautica. What was the deal with the last video with Subnautica? I gotta go back and watch that to see what Greg put there, because hundreds of comments asking for Subnautica. Anyways, could be a moon planet. Whichever it is, this is basically a complete unknown. It's also unknown if the planet was a water world, something similar to Earth, or maybe there was just very little land, but likely given the radiation levels allowing for this level of, I suppose you could call it biological acquisition of radiation for offensive reasons, the land was likely completely sterile along with the upper levels of water. But deep down, life could continue to be influenced by radiation levels but not destroyed by it. This species appears to be one that may have originated from the depths. During its more primitive era, it was a serpent of sorts that used the flared areas of its neck to glide through the waters, probably quite silently. However, it wouldn't just hunt by sight given the depths that it would need to go to avoid dangerous levels of radiation, but instead would identify prey and others of its own race by the neurological energy signatures they emitted, which is fantastic for hunting humans, because it's important to remember your neurons release electromagnetic fields. It's very detectable. We detect it all the time. So it's just an interesting concept. Like, if you can read those fields specifically, can you actually read somebody's mind? Possibly. But the electromagnetic fields actually produced by your body is how these things are seeing you. Joke's on them, though. Even if we didn't evolve to see nervous system activity, we can still see by light, so we have our own hunting techniques. Maybe just not as good. Well, actually, it is as good, because you know what? We can always use a mirror to look around the corner. They can't. Suck it. So now this arrangement on their rock may have had at first provided enough stability over time for them to continue to evolve, which would ultimately allow them to take on very clear adaptations, which, by our standards, I mean, it's strange to say the least, What I believe we are seeing is a harnessing of high radiation levels that are ambiently available in the environment, which is then stored in the bones of this creature. Likely given the fact that our own bodies, like we use calcium, it's a fantastic material to make endoskeletons out of, and we horrifically know that strontium, which is somewhat radioactive, likely composes maybe their skeletal structure, because we've actually had events where strontium replaces the calcium in human bones. And the outcomes are horrifying. This would also have other effects on these creatures, though. If strontium was used rather than calcium, which is most likely what was going on here, there is a version known as SR90. This will release beta particles quite readily, which in turn will rapidly cause molecules to begin breaking down. Now, why is this important? On the surface and in a general sense, it is likely that the bodies of this species would have high levels of strontium, but they evolved with it. Because of this, they would, bleed it out into the surrounding environment with little issues. It may actually be somewhat of a digestive process when they consumed anything around them. However, as they evolved, these electromagnetic pulses that they send out, which clearly is seen to interact with the surrounding area, were about as dangerous as, say, like an electric eel, right? Painful, and could probably stun, but not outright kill unless you were like a super small fish. This was their original hunting method, clearly, as it would interact with potentially the other nervous systems of the prey, or at least their flesh. And this could potentially injure another animal with the beta particles from their bones. However, over time, as they became more intelligent, they would begin working on utilizing their own naturally occurring abilities and focusing them. This is where the shielding comes into play. They are not so much firing through their shielding, but instead the shielding acts as a focusing lens. Almost similar to how the sun's rays give us heat and energy, right? But if you take a magnifying glass and focus them, you can start fires with it. The same process works with this species. The shielding will actually focus this naturally occurring electromagnetic pulse that used to be as painful as an electric eel shock or gave you low-dose radiation. And this would actually be brought on by the strontium lattice structuring in the bones, as radiation levels on this planet were much higher and could be bogarted, so to speak. As this process was refined, it was probably seen pretty quickly that this species, by using this shielding to focus their attack, it went from electric eel to outright, maybe like an output of a nuclear power plant. The radiation levels would be rapidly and concisely focused into one point, which would then immediately break down a person in this instance. But how does this process work? Well, as they go to actually attack, the electrical tethers are probably just extended areas of the technology that they have built. So the shielding reaching out and it's clearly controllable, sort of like manipulation of an electromagnetic field into a tube shape, which can be actively done now. As the person is then brought closer, the beta particles from the strontium skeleton can actually explode outwards towards the person. Focused by the electromagnetic field, as it's already creating naturally, when striking the person, this would cause something known as flash pyrolysis. Flash pyrolysis, down to its core, is radiation accompanied with an electric field causing instant dehydration and molecular fragmentation. When this happens, as the massive amount of beta particles hit, say like feet first, people would probably seem to just get their, they just seem to get their legs grabbed a lot. But this would immediately break apart hydrogen and oxygen in the water, creating instant dehydration. Along with this, more complex particles in the body would also be broken apart almost instantly, which in turn, one such atom, which we are mostly made of, carbon, would be released. This would mean that you don't die in some gooey explosion, you are instantly dehydrated from beta particles as water is actively destroyed and carbon is released, causing you to appear to turn to ash. The mercy of going out like this is that your body would have no time to even report the pain to your brain, as the nerves are destroyed way too quickly for it to even be communicated. Basically, you can't see it, but when these things decide to attack you, you are essentially standing in front of one of the most powerful beta particle cannons imaginable, and the result is flash pyrolysis. But then, why doesn't this species have any skin, I can hear you asking? Very good question. It's possible that the naturally occurring lower levels that they once had allowed for meat to exist on their bodies, and as time passed on their planet, I believe why they may have been creating the shielding in the first place is the radiation levels began to rise regardless of the depth of the water, or the water began to evaporate. As a result, it's sort of like the oxygen levels increased too much on Earth. Yes, for a while it may be good, it may even feel great, but eventually oxygen toxicity will creep in, and then you're totally screwed as lung damage begins to build up. This same idea can be applied here. As the radiation levels rose, this species would begin building shielding to contend with their environment. However, it may have had the unintended consequence of actually trapping their bodies in with more beta particles that eventually became even too high for their own meat suits to deal with. However, with the strontium skeletal systems in place, their brains and their eyes would be relatively protected from the particles as it's being emitted. Now, it's not a perfect situation here, as the particles would emit inwards as well as outwards, but there could be like a naturally occurring barrier actually protecting brains and eyes. And running with this whole idea, we need to assume then that the shielding somehow takes over the life support role. But eventually these particles would take their toll, melting away the soft tissue of the body. Same idea can be applied if humans sit in water for too long. Yes, we are made of 60% water, but our meat suits cannot just exist in water. It will cause us to basically melt. Same idea for this species. Oh God, I remember the story I heard when I was doing third riders in EMT school. Essentially what happened was there was a woman who went missing for like a week and a half, and nobody knew where she went. Turns out she had a heart attack in her hot tub, and somebody smelled something essentially, so they went to go pick her up, and apparently one of the guys remarked oh, she's lighter than I thought, and then when they lifted her up mid-thoracic down, she was just melted. Crazy stuff. But that's what happens when you sit in water for too long. Anyways, with all that said, the happy little accident for this species, after designing the shielding would be that they would probably at first try to naturally drop the levels of beta particles in their immediate environment by releasing them, only to find it made an absolutely insane attack, melting would-be attackers. So I guess win-win for them. Now, the question remains, why attack Earth? Well, they're dumb for this, but then again, maybe not, I guess. It could be that the shielding doesn't really work like a suit might, allowing them to breathe. It may be that they still need to be able to mine within a habitable environment for the minerals they need, probably likely strontium, in order to continue to keep their skeletal systems fueled. However, if they don't, and they just showed up to Earth because this is the place that has some resources, brother, can I point you to the direction of the asteroid belt or literally anywhere else? Seems a really stupid idea just to go for Earth. Ultimately, this species appears to have evolved in a high radiation world that for one reason or another may have had levels continue to increase over time in their immediate area. As this happened, they would have to go on to build this shielding in order to exist there. Eventually though, it's clear they would have to leave their planet in order to survive long term, potentially due to their sun increasing in luminosity, subsequently causing their oceans to begin evaporating, leading to their once deep waters to become more shallow, letting in too much radiation even for them. As this process continued, it would cause this species to have a leave and seek out others in the surrounding area in order to survive mentality, possibly going after asteroids that are strontium rich, or hell, even Luna has plateaus with strontium readily available. Maybe that would get better, but again, I'm not the one planning the alien invasion. But also, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like as it helps get the video out there, and subscribing has already helped us crack 1.2 million subs. Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, Rono Tales channel links, and other stuff in the description. But speaking of patrons, I'll thank mine real quick. At the astronaut tier, we have It's Not a Spoonback. What's going on, man? Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. And we also have Kusek. Thank you as well, sir. At the astrophysicist tier, we have Death Dancer, Mayura, and Webitron Supreme. Thank you guys as well. And at the full-fledged scientist tier, we have Stutz, Frank Shaftcrank, Some Big Nerd, Metric System, Invictus Echo, Official Texan, The Homeless Guy in the Street, and Jason. Thank you guys for your support as well. And to everyone else, I do appreciate it. You guys are absolute ballers, and well, thank you for that. But all right, that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.